I think that the founding fathers sat around and had this conversation, and they're like, look, we know through all human history, rights were dictated by who had the guns, who had the strength. We have to change that because it constantly, Goblin King switches hands, the next strongest guy overthrows.
This gets right to the heart of it. Basically, before America, rights were just whatever the guy with the biggest stick said they were. It was pure chaos, just one goblin king after another. And honestly, he's right. That is how the world actually worked. But here's the problem. If you're trying to move away from might makes right, what are you actually replacing it with? Because if it isn't strength, then what gives a right any teeth at all? It's a massive claim to make.
There isn't rights at all. From your view, rights are a social construct, aren't they?
I mean, rights are whoever is able to enforce them.
That's right. So it's a social construct. Do you believe in objective truth?
No.
So I can't believe anything you say, and you don't believe that there's any such thing as rights, but it's wrong for me to do something bad to you, even though there's no moral facts. Ingenious. This is your opposition, ladies and gentlemen. These are the communists who are taking over academia and teaching your kids. What's in dispute here is not whether or not you can craft societies in which men grant women rights, because I would argue that obviously we can see societies right this second. We live in one where men grant women rights.
God, I don't want to interrupt you, but God grants the rights in our society.
Oh, yeah, does he?
Well, that's what the Constitution says.
Well, the Constitution operates on an axiom that all men are created equal under God, right? This is axiomatic. I'm not saying I don't think it's grounded, and I don't think it's well philosophically grounded. While I, as a Christian, would argue that there's some positive rights, or at least could argue that there's positive rights. From her view, there isn't rights at all. From your view, rights are a social construct, aren't they?
I mean, rights are whoever is able to enforce them.
That's right. So it's a social construct.
But I don't even really dispute with you about the force thing. Who determines a right? Is that by divine right, by God or whatever? But like as far as the practical reality of like who can enforce their rights, that really comes down to force.
I just want to make sure we get this clear. Is a right a social construction from your view? We make it up. And then we have guns and say, do it or else. Or these people are allowed to do it or else. There's
something about my answer intuitively that wants to say, no, I don't believe it's just like a social thing or a social phenomenon or construct. I don't know, not divine command theory though. So I'm not sure.
So you can't ground it in anything, can you?
I guess not, no.
Yeah, because you just make them the up, don't you?
What do you ground it in?
Well, I ground it in God, but I have a different worldview than you. And when we're debating this, we're debating it from the prism of our worldview. While I, as the Christian, might be able to grant that there are rights, why should I ever grant them to you, commie? You don't believe in them at all. From your view, if I take away all of your rights, we just made them the up anyway.
I feel like that's a highly reductive way to characterize my arguments.
I'm sorry you feel that way, but how is it not the case that from your view, we just made them the up, they're not grounded in anything, and if I take them away, how's that even immoral?
You conceive of these things and look at them through lenses that I just don't find useful, or I have not thought to do so.
From the Marxist lens?
They could be useful. No, I'm saying from a Marxist materialist lens, yes. But I mean, my general opinion on rights is that they're useless if you only have them de jure, but you don't actually have a way to enforce them. Or similarly, it is, I wouldn't say equally as futile, but it's also a precarious position to be in where you can enforce your rights, but you have not actually secured the legal protections and the de jure actually gotten them ensconced in writing in a constitution, et cetera.
But how is it not the weakest sand on earth to say that we need to enforce these rights that I just made the up? Because they're not grounded in anything. I just made them up.
And you think that them being grounded in God makes it more superior?
Well, I think that the only argument that you can give to men, the benevolency of the patriarchy, is the entire appeal from people with your worldview is to appeal to us and our view who believe in rights because of God and say to us, don't we deserve them too, even though we don't actually even share the view? To which I tell Christians, no, give them nothing.
This is just so incredibly mask off. Andrew isn't even trying to win a philosophical debate here. He's just straight up making a threat. It's wild. He's badgering her about grounding rights, and she's actually being pretty honest, right? She's like, look, intuitively, I feel like they exist, but I'm struggling to explain why without a religious framework. She's being vulnerable and intellectually real, and Andrew just uses that to pounce. His whole logic is, if you can't prove where they come from to my satisfaction, then you don't have any, period. He literally says, why should I ever grant them to you, commie? Like, wait, grant them? That's the most telling word in this whole clip. To him, rights aren't actually something you have. They're a gift that powerful men like him decide to give you if they're feeling nice. It's not philosophy, it's just, I have the boots and the guns, so I make the rules. He's basically admitting that his version of God is just a convenient excuse to treat people he doesn't like as subhuman. It's mean-spirited, and honestly, it's just lazy.
Because they're appealing to your benevolence, and they should beg for you to be as benevolent as you are, because from their worldview, they have nothing to ground it in. Like you said, you have nothing to ground it in. You just made them up. Why should I believe them? Why should I believe that you have a right to do anything? You don't even believe you have a right to do anything.
Why should I believe in like divine command theory and that because God says it is, then it is?
That's the beautiful part of the argument. You don't. Because if we're operating off of your view,
but why should I?
I'm just gonna grant that it's false. Who cares? If we're both building it off of a house of sand, and I just made up divine command theory, and you just which, by the way, I don't believe in divine command theory, but if I did.
I'm sorry.
Okay, if I did. If I just grant that I made it up, it doesn't help your position a bit.
What is divine command theory?
It only helps my position. Hang on a second, Ian. 1 second. It only helps my position. Sure, I made the whole thing up. How's that helpful to you?
Well, I'm asking, how do you intend to spread this to people that don't believe in your worldview?
With this argument. Because you're going to have to appeal.
Persuasion, which
you're
is
going to
more
have to appeal
to
my worldview, whether it's true or not, because it's the only one, right? Which I'm going to postulate. I'm going to ground rights in. You just got done saying rights are not grounded in anything. So if that's the case, fine. I lied and made the whole thing up. But rights aren't grounded in anything anyway, so it doesn't help you a bit. If I take them away.
But you think they're grounded in the divinity, and so I'm saying that a lot of people.
So you're appealing to my view again?
Yes, I'm appealing to your to your view. And in a world that's increasingly secular, how do you intend to persuade people? Do you think that Christians ought to be using force or persuasion?
What do you mean? I'm sorry. Me? Why do I need to do anything when the view of my opposition is that they have no rights, can't ground them in
I'm not
any...
saying that you need to do it. I'm asking you how you intend to.
This is how I intend to do it, by pointing out that you live in your whole house is built on sand.
Persuasion?
And you have to literally appeal to me. Well, even if I used force, you have no appeal against that. Nothing's grounded in anything. It's all made the up.
Sure, yeah. I guess I sleep fine at night knowing this or whatever. I guess I would consider I'm like a moral anti-realist. I don't believe in these sorts of like.
And that's why you have to, and you guys always have to appeal, you moral anti-realist, to moral realists who believe in moral facts, because that's what prevents us from all of you.
But to answer your question.
But hang on. Isn't that true? That what prevents us from all of you is you're appealing to our benevolence as moral realists.
You mean Christians? What prevents Christians from everybody else?
Yeah.
I don't believe so, but okay.
Yeah, they're not appealing to their Christianity and Christian ethics to just not go ahead and enslave all women.
No, I don't think so. No.
Why not?
Because I don't think that has necessarily been the basis for people arguing for equality or whatever. I don't think that you're presupposing that it's always been by virtue of like appealing to Christian benevolence ethics, etc.
Never seen any appeal that was not dogmatic and religious for why women have rights ever in all of human history. They always appeal to a God. They always appeal to a higher power. They always appeal to something external to them. You just got done saying it's not grounded in anything. You made it up. If it's completely made up, it's not grounded in nothing, then you're appealing to Christians and Christian benevolence in their view. Even if it's not true, you're appealing to their view that they believe it's true, to not just stuff you in a cage. And if you said that's wrong and they asked you, why is it wrong? You'd have to say, I don't know. It's not grounded in anything. I just made it up. And that's the most persuasive argument on planet Earth, in my opinion.
This is basically Andrew saying his entire argument is a hostage situation. He's telling her, straight to her face, that the only reason she isn't in a cage right now is because he's nice enough to follow his own rules. And he thinks that's a win. He thinks, I'm the only thing stopping me from hurting you, is a solid philosophical foundation. It's not. It's just a threat with a cross on it. When she asks how he plans to actually persuade people who don't believe in his God, he just stops. He won't answer. He just points back at her and says her house is built on sand. Okay, but how does that help you fix yours? It's like your mechanic telling you your car is a wreck, and when you ask how he's going to fix it, he just says, well, at least I have a wrench and you don't. That doesn't get the car moving. He's admitting that his grounding only matters if you already agree with him. If you don't, you're just left hoping he stays in a good mood. That's not logic. That's just power. It's incredibly circular and, honestly, kind of terrifying when you really listen to what he's implying there.
I think that the founding fathers sat around and had this conversation, and they're like, look, we know through all human history, rights were dictated by who had the guns, who had the strength. We have to change that because it constantly, Goblin King switches hands, the next strongest guy overthrows. Oh, so they're like, let's say it's from God. Or they really believed it. I know they were like Christian dudes. Not all of them were like Catholic or anything. I mean, they were all their own. Thomas Jefferson wrote his own Bible. What's that?
I said very few were Catholic.
Yeah. So they said, let's just appeal it to God. Whether or not it's true, I don't know. I don't know what God is.
But they knew that the moral order depended on a Christian worldview. The more you go into like arbitrary kind of reason for rights, even if they weren't Christian. I think, was it John Adams that said a democratic republic is only fit for a moral and Christian society?
There's actually several foundational contributors who talked about how a morality, there has to be a shared sense of morality inside of a public in order for there to be a republic. Mm-hmm. So that's true. I think that's true of any society. I think there has to be some shared glue. Right here, we used to have like patriotism. We used to have all sorts of things that were a shared glue. That's all gone. Right now, I have to share my country with communists. Right? And it used to be that we persecuted communists. That was so base. Can we get back to that? Can we get back to persecuting the communists? But the point is like this type of poison, in my opinion, is so invasive to the fabric of the United States that people who literally tell me they can't ground anything in nothing. Know that they can't ground anything in nothing, that there's no such thing as moral facts, then tell me it's wrong if I stuff them in a... And it's like, what are you talking about? That's the stupidest that I've ever heard in my life, but that's my opposition, unfortunately. And so they appeal to the benevolence of those like me in order to prevent us from doing the thing that they don't want, that they don't even believe we shouldn't do because there are no moral facts. That's the state of the world that we're in.
And Andrew is very magnanimous for not stuffing lowly communists like me in gulags and whatnot.
Were you always?
Yeah, well, I mean, from your view, how is that anything but benevolent? Why shouldn't I? As a moral anti-realist, why shouldn't I do that? What would make that immoral? Tell me, what would make it immoral as a moral anti-realist for me to stuff your in a gulag? What?
It's a more consequentialist outlook that I think that based off the outcomes.
Wait, there's no moral facts, right?
No, they're not real facts, no. But,
so then there's nothing I'm really doing that's immoral, is there?
No.
No.
Again, that's highly... No, I disagree with you. I'm saying
the gulag, is that immoral? No.
It's immoral, but not under the same framework. I'm not using the same, like the moral realist framework to say that it's wrong. It's wrong for other reasons.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, do you believe in objective truth?
No.
No, is that true?
Subjective.
Okay, so you don't believe in objective truth.
Are you like a math realist?
Hang on, and I ask you if that's true, and you say no, that's not true either. So I can't believe anything you say, and you don't believe that there's any such thing as rights, but it's wrong for me to do something bad to you, even though there's no moral facts. Ingenious. This is your opposition, ladies and gentlemen. These are the communists who are taking over academia and teaching your kids.
This is where the whole thing just falls apart for me. Andrew spends this entire debate acting like he's the only one with a solid foundation, and then he just says, I don't know what God is. Wait, what? You can't build your entire house on a specific rock and then admit you aren't even sure if the rock exists. It's total nonsense. But then it gets darker. He starts talking about how base it was when we used to persecute communists and how he wants to get back to that. It's not a logic puzzle anymore. He's straight up asking why he shouldn't just throw her in a gulag since she doesn't believe in moral facts. And sure, he catches her in a trap. She's stumbling. She can't explain why it's wrong without using the framework he's already dismantled. I get it. He won the point. But man, winning a debate because you're willing to joke about state-sponsored violence while your opponent is literal dead weight on logic, that's not the win he thinks it is. It just feels gross. He's so obsessed with winning that he's basically saying the only thing stopping him from being a monster is a god he just admitted he doesn't understand. That's a massive red flag.